Okay, so we're going to pick up where we left off in the previous lesson, right? And but before we kind of get into some of these individual things, I wanted to share some research that I came across this week that kind of influences this. In the previous lesson, we had talked about um, when you when you get down to the actual product itself, you want to have the detailed information there so that someone can do whatever research that they're wanting to do on your product. But I want to balance that with some brain research that I came across. People studying the way that the brain functions and things, and their research is almost counterintuitive. Is that they've found that sometimes if someone has too many choices and too many options presented to them at once, then their purchasing choice begins to go down. Their likelihood of making a purchase goes down. So some of the research was they set up in a supermarket, and they had one of the testings was a booth with 6 different kinds of like salsa or something, some kind of sauce, and they had 6 different varieties, and they were giving out samples and things of that nature. And then at another booth in a different part, they had 24 varieties, and they were giving out samples and things like that. And what they found was that sales from the section that had just the 6 were much higher, although people that stopped by the booth with the 24 was much higher, right? But they ended up with actually less sales, even though they had more people that stopped by their booth, right? And so I guess the larger amount of selection attracted more people, but because it was the argument that the authors of that research were making was that it's information overload, and so when the brain is forced to choose between too many options, it often shuts down and decides not to make a purchase at all, and so or backs up and takes more time or whatever. And so the idea is that if you present your people with too much information and too many decisions, then you often end up with a negative result from that. So if you have no information, you're not going to get anything either. And so it's about focused information, putting what is most relevant on the page. If you've got 6 pages of every detail for your product, then you're probably not going to connect with people as much as you would like. So you want to have relevant information at each product and relevant details, right? But you have to guard against information overload, because that actually ends up with a negative effect. So when you're designing your web page and you're putting content on each particular item in your store, have that information in mind, that if you put too much there, give them too many things to think about, you will often drive away potential customers, right? For whatever reason, the brain tends to shut down when faced with too many choices, right? So you want to give them choices, but not too many. It's a fine balance, all right? 6 or 7 things to look at on the page. You go 10, 20 things, all of a sudden it's a little too much for them to take in, right? Okay. So in this lesson, we wanted to finish up where we were at, and we were looking at marketing for your online business and some things to consider for that. So what I wanted to do here is I've made a list, and I've got a few others on the next slide, of methods of driving traffic, right, to your website, because that's really what it's ultimately going to boil down to, is were you able to drive traffic to your website? Not just if people start looking for you, do you come up? I mean, that's part of the equation, but the other part of the equation is, are you able to funnel people towards you, right? Kind of go after them, so to speak, and meet them where they're at, as opposed to hoping that they find you, right? So here's a few things to keep in mind. The first one up there is blogs, right? That if you get a following, right, you start some kind of blog and you've got several hundred people that follow you, that may allow you to to speak about the website some. You can put links to the website in your blog, all right? And who knows, other people may click on it through there. So if you get a blog, so the blog shouldn't be just only promoting your product. Probably the better way to do that is to have a blog where maybe you're talking about the industry that you're in and you're giving people good information, but yet at the same time, as they begin to trust you, they're going to listen to your recommendation a little bit too. So having a blog out there, and you can do a little bit of both. Maybe a blog where you're just giving out information and you mention yours, or maybe there's some blogs, some web things, some information content that you put out there that's specifically just about your product, and you do a little bit of both, right, to begin to develop relationships with people that are interested in the types of things that your business does, right? So blogs are important. Newsletters. Now, newsletters typically fall into what's considered back-end marketing, because you don't really know who wants your newsletter until they purchase something from you. So if you notice, most of the time when you buy something, they often, particularly if it's online, there's a button where you check, do you want to be part of our mailing list, right? Do you want to receive offers, newsletters, promos, whatever? Most e-commerce web solutions offer that now, to where you can set it up and have yourself a newsletter. So that's kind of back-end marketing. Once they've purchased from you, keep in mind, they become the most likely person to buy from you again. Especially if you provide a good quality product or service, the people that have purchased from you in the past are really your main go-to for future marketing, right? So you don't want to bombard them, but you got to maintain contact. Right, and so that's what the newsletter does. The newsletter maybe you have a few ads, a couple coupons, something like that in there. Probably the best way to do it is have 2 or 3 paragraphs where you're teaching them something new about the industry, and then maybe below that have a few advertisements where there's some promo codes or coupons or something like that, to where they get a discount if they come back. Those types of things. Podcasts. And I'm going to lump radio commercials in there too a little bit with that, because the idea of what I'm talking about here is getting out there and teaching on a particular thing, whatever it is that you sell. If you can get out there and teach on it a little bit, kind of get the word out. The reason I say teach is because if people see you as an expert or professional in your field, they have a higher comfort level of purchasing from you, right? So you don't want to just be an infomercial where you're just trying to sell them something, only like the late night TV things. I mean, and they mix in some teaching, but there's a lot of times where people are it's just a straight sell tactic. That's not as good as the informational kind of tactic where you're informing them, you're teaching them, and but also recommending your product as well, right? So if it's informative, you kind of give that impression that you are a professional and an expert in your field, then you kind of bridge that credibility gap with them. They begin to see you as trustworthy and credible. So you can do that through podcasts or radio commercials. A lot of times, particularly on the weekends or AM radio, different things like that, you can purchase a 30-minute time slot, right? And so you record it ahead of time, or sometimes these people do a live broadcast to take people's phone calls and stuff. But on the radio, you can purchase a 30-minute time slot and have recorded it previously, where you're talking with somebody else maybe, and the two of you are having a conversation back and forth about your industry, about your product, that kind of thing, and throughout you're mentioning your product, you're mentioning why they should buy from you, why you're the best in your field, that kind of thing, and you can use those avenues to steer traffic to your website, right? So throughout the commercial, throughout the 30-minute thing you're doing on the radio, you're consistently talking about your website and your web address and telling people if they go there they get a 10% discount or something. You want to give them some kind of discount to entice them to want to at least check out the website, right? And then that also goes along with that last one on the list there. When you're doing the radio commercials or the podcasts or things like that, to give people an incentive to want to at least check out your website, normally some kind of a free sample might be something that you can do. Now, different people do this different ways. I've seen people give the free sample and then they do something that I just absolutely hate. So there's no way that I could ever recommend for you to do this because I'm morally against it. It infuriates me. But there's a lot of business people maybe that don't think it's a big deal. But what they do is they tell you, we'll give you a free sample. All right, all you pay is shipping and handling, no big deal. But they have to take your credit card for the shipping and handling. And what they do though is a lot of times, even without telling you, is that when the next month rolls around, they bill you for a full shipment of this stuff, and then they ship it to you. You didn't even ask for it, but they billed it to you, and they have this policy where once you take your free sample, we're gonna bill you for this until you call in and cancel, right? And to me, that's infuriating, And so people do that, but I could never recommend for somebody to do that. So if you're going to do the free sample thing, just let it be a genuine free sample. If your product's good, then it speaks for itself, and people will come back if it really works. If it's a good product, they'll come back. You don't have to trick them. Eventually, I believe, you reap what you sow. You trick people into buying your product, and eventually your company will go under because after a while you will start to reap the fact that nobody trusts your business anymore. Alright, so anyways, traditional marketing. Now we're talking about ways to drive traffic to your website, right? And so there's all of the traditional marketing tactics, direct mail, flyers, billboards, conventions, conferences, door-to-door sales, car wraps, any of these, anything that would be a traditional marketing for a brick and mortar company, television commercials, radio commercials, magazines, any of those, anything that would be a traditional marketing approach. Nowadays, people are just also putting their web address along with everything else. In fact, often your web address is even more important than your phone number to include nowadays in your traditional marketing. So in all of the traditional marketing that you would do, you can use that to direct traffic back towards your web address by prominently displaying your web address in your traditional marketing. Alright, the next one, a Facebook page, right? So social media in general is important, right? There's all kinds of things popping up. None are more prominent than the Facebook platform, right? And so along with Facebook, also add any of the other social media sites, that you're able to do, right? And begin to have a presence there. Facebook is kind of nice because you can build a page, you can tell people about it. If they like your page, it kind of spreads it to their friends, and so you may do some incentive if somebody likes your page, whatever. There's different things that you can do, but Facebook is definitely a place where you want to have some kind of a presence because it's free, right? It doesn't really cost you anything to be in Facebook, although there are some Facebook options where you can advertise with them now for a cost, right? So that's another option. So not only do you have your Facebook page, but you can get your ad in with Facebook for a cost as well, right? And then free samples. That doesn't fit with every industry, If you're in real estate, probably not going to help you too much. Although you could, if you're in real estate, you could give them a free sample promotional package. I think that's definitely something, actually, now that I think about it, that would be good if you're trying to get a listing, right? Go there, take a few photos of the outside of their house, and put together a demo package already, with their stuff in it, with some kind of video, or maybe even you have a sample of what your ad looks like in the magazine you advertise with, and you keep that template on your computer. You take the picture of the front of their house, you put it in the ad, print that and bring that with you. Bring the video on your laptop so that you can show them without any cost. You just show them, hey, this is what we would do to market your company. If it's a product, you can give some kind of a free sample out, and you just chalk that up as a marketing budget. Whatever you spent for the free sample, is just marketing dollars, right? The good thing about it is if you pay for marketing through some other company like AdWords or Facebook or display ads, any of those types of things, you're paying full price to them, right, for their services. If you do a free sample, you get the free samples at your cost because you're the one making them, right? And so it's something to think about. If you advertise through other mediums, you're paying full price because you've got to pay their commission and their fee. But the free samples, you get a little bit of value there because you're giving them something, say that's worth $5, but it only cost you $1.50, right? And so by the free sample, you created some instant value that you can give away $5 to all these people worth of product for $1.50 at your cost, right? Okay. And then a couple other things. AdWords. You've got your book on Google search optimization. AdWords is huge, right? It's affordable because you get to set the budget that you can spend. If you can only spend $50 a month, put it in there. If you only spend $10 a month, put it in there. And as your company grows, you can raise your limits, right? And you can begin to see Google AdWords as an investment, right? You begin to put that in there, and then you are part of their system, their click-through system, so that they pretty much guarantee that they will drive traffic to your website, right? Now, what happens once they're there, that's up to how you have designed your website, but AdWords will drive traffic. I mean, somebody is going to click on your page if you put some money in AdWords, right? Display advertising. What this means is, have you ever been on a web page and you see on the right side and left side, maybe the top and bottom, somewhere there's some ad scrolling, right, for some company, and they're trying to advertise their product to you, and a lot of times it's something that you've looked at within the last week or two, that's display ads, right? And so some of them are more sophisticated than others, but the basic idea is that you create an ad and you go through one of these display ad companies. I know Dex1 does it. I believe they have a minimum, though, of I want to say $500 a month for their services, and they will put your ad on different web pages, right? So that when somebody's on a website, you're part of this network of potential ads that could pop up to them. And then there's other things like Pandora, right? You can get on there. Anything that does advertising. There's so many companies now online that get their money from advertising, right? And so there's a lot of options now for you to get your name out there in some various means. You got to pay for them, right? But you can get your ad out there, right? Back-end marketing, we touched on that a little bit. In order to do back-end marketing well, you've got to collect data well, right? Because you can't email a customer that you didn't retain their web address for, right? So this comes back to database collection, right? Database marketing is what it's called, where you collect your customers' information. You begin to develop this database of people that have purchased from you, because you've collected and retained their information, and then you periodically send them something. It's a fine line between pestering and keeping someone informed about your company, right? And so you have to think through. If it's cars, right? People buy a car at the most. Even wealthy people probably only every 2 or 3 years at the most, right? Some people, it's a 7 to 10 year purchase, right? So if somebody just bought a car from you and then you start advertising to them every week, you're going to really drive them away, right? But say if it's vitamins or food, right? I mean, they're going to run out of that in a month. So you may want to have a more consistent back-end marketing approach if it's some kind of product or service that they're going to need repeatedly, right? So you have to figure out for your own industry what's an appropriate time scale for reconnecting with your customers, right? But it begins with collecting and retaining the data, right? And then if you have other things other than the website, if the larger the company, the more sophisticated their data collection is. So like the airlines have a very sophisticated data collection. They know when you flew. They knew whether you were first class or not. They knew what time of year. They knew where you went, where you purchased from. All these different things, so that they can customize marketing to you, right? So that maybe if they've got if they've noticed you've flown to one particular location twice in the last few years, then maybe next time they have a sale on flights there, maybe they send you that advertisement, right? Because you're a likely candidate to go there. Or if you travel a lot, you're going to get a lot of their ads because you're a consistent customer, right? So, all right, a couple other things. Personalization software. What this does is it sends people, or one thing that you can use it for rather, is it sends people custom emails with product suggestions, right? I get these all the time from Amazon and different places where if I go on there and buy something, then probably within the next month or two I will get an email from them with 5 or 6 books or products, whatever it is, that are in the same general category of what I just purchased a couple weeks earlier, right? The logic is that if I was interested in that subject then, there's a good chance out of everyone in the world I'm a likely candidate to still be interested in it, right? And so they will customize based on your previous product selections. They will customize an email targeted to your people. So if you've got several products, maybe a personalization software system might work for you, that when somebody buys something from you, it's set up to automatically send them an email, say in 3 weeks, with some product suggestions that they might come back. Right? Now, if you've only got 1 or 2 products, then this is probably a waste of money because there's nothing to it. I mean, the reason that it's worth the money is because it has the capacity to sort through everything that you have and match your products with their purchase selection, right? But if you only have a few products, it's not worth it, right? All right, so the last one, be referenced in other web pages, right? So to the extent that you can, if there are links in other web pages to your page, then that can be a helpful tool, right? So maybe you connect with other places. Say if you sell a Christian magazine or something, right? Maybe you can connect with a lot of small churches and have them put a link to your magazine article front page on their website somewhere, something like that. And so now all of a sudden you have a lot of people connecting with you. There's different ways you can do that. You can talk with the site administrator, whoever's running the thing, and maybe you either they just straight out put you on there, or maybe there's some kind of reciprocal thing where where you put them on some web page of yours somewhere, right? And you return the favor, right? So anyways, there's different things that you can do. So in this lesson, what I wanted you to see is that there are a variety of things that you can take advantage of, some that cost money and some that don't, right? But if you did everything that I just said there, you would drive some traffic to your website, right? And that's really what it's all about, is breaking that stalemate and building some momentum and starting to get some traffic so that you get some sales going, so you get some cash flow to begin to expand the business and begin to take advantage of larger purchases. The more product you buy, the cheaper you get each unit for. And so the key is just get people in, get the cash flowing, so that you can they call it commodity of scale, that kind of thing, that when you start buying more of something, you get it for cheaper per unit, right? And then all of a sudden your profit per unit goes up, and then all of a sudden you've got some momentum, right? You got cash flow going, you got a successful web presence, people are starting to know about you, you're getting your products for cheaper, you're making a little bit more profit margin, and little by little you begin to expand out from that, and that's really the key. But it begins with aggressively pursuing getting the ball rolling here on driving people to the website, right? So you build your site, have it a solid website that covered all the bases we talked about earlier, and then aggressively start pursuing the marketing campaign. Okay.